Everybody. I'm not exactly sure if Brody's showing up. We'll see. There he is. Wait, no. I don't know what this is. I don't know exactly what that is. But I'm waiting for Brody to show up. Maybe he can join me. Otherwise, I'll just go through this myself. Give a few. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, sorry, I just had.
Hey, what's going on, man? You watching your Packers here?
Actually, I need to get them turned on. I'm gonna put them on this other screen of mine
It's
here.
halftime now, so you got a little bit of a break.
Yeah, I was gonna watch the second half as I finished building. I was really focused this morning, so.
What's the sweatshirt say? I love what?
Oh, just I love it. I love
Oh,
that.
nice. I
I've,
just saw the I Heart. I didn't see the
yeah,
I didn't
I
see
wear
what
my
was the
Arizona Cardinal sweatshirt all the time, so I figured I'd mix it up.
right. So I want to kind of go through the games here a little bit because there is some at least for me some pending injury news that I just want to just make sure that I have a handle on before I finalize stuff. But we could just go through these games here. So first of all, the Chargers in Cleveland. Um, Uh, Keenan Allen was officially out, right? That was from earlier, and I still see Josh Palmer listed as questionable. And again, all of this is probably going to be coming in while we're live, right? So, does is this news relevant to you? Are you looking at this game at all? Um, I naturally would ask, what do you think about Nick Chubb and Austin Eckler as possibilities? But aside from that, what are you getting a lot of exposure to this game? Again, I can't really build much until I get the rest of this injury news in. But what do you think of this game?
Yeah, it's a little bit lower owned game right now in the industry, so like it does have a lot of interest for me. I always like the Chargers, obviously, and yeah, if Palmer was ruled out, you would have some 3K guys quite open there. Or load up on Mike Williams, which I don't think's a bad play anyways today with no Keenan Allen. And then Eckler's been dominant last week as well, so the Mike Williams Eckler Herbert stack is fine with me. So
Yeah. So again, that's just something to monitor. I think, if I'm not mistaken, all the injury news comes piling in usually around 11:30. Is that about right? Um, if so, that gives us obviously plenty of time to react to all that.
yeah.
What about those? So Eckler, did you like Chubb at all or not really?
I haven't really got to Chubb. I
Okay.
feel like if he does well, it slows the game down. So I don't know, but I mean, I don't mind him as a run back. I think Amari Cooper's a better run back in this game at 6K. I mean, um, I
Okay.
don't mind that if you're gonna run something back. But I mean, both of them are fine. Those are the two guys I'd run it back with. So
So the Buffalo Pitt game is, it's a game that's garnered a lot of interest during the course of the week, and whenever you have a team with an implied team total of 30, you're kind of forced to address it, right? And what's going on here is that the Buffalo side of things is going to project really, really well, but the Pittsburgh side not so much. So typical builds that want to have run backs from the other side are going to, I don't want to say struggle, but they're going to be challenged, right? So that's the first thing. The other thing is that there seems to be pending injury news here on Isaiah McKenzie, which is going to drive ownership to or from, I imagine, the Khalil Shakir. Because if McKenzie is out, this is what I've gathered. Again, I can't even update projections until this stuff comes out because everything will change. But at least I'm aware of the fact that if McKenzie's out, Shakir does rate to step in, and at 3,200, he's going to garner a lot of interest. We'll see how projections come in once that news happens or doesn't happen, and the thing about it's kind of cool because I kind of follow the projections and the ownership is it's kind of hard to predict how ownership is going to follow that type of thing, because you won't even get updated ownership projections really up until the end. And you're going to have to kind of gauge for yourself, how chalky someone like Shakir would be. So that's the first thing about the Buffalo side. And the other side thing, as I mentioned, is that if you were going to play it in a pure GPP type thing, you have to make a decision of whether you want to play, Allen with two guys from Buffalo and no one running back from Pittsburgh, or run the risk that you're going to take a Pittsburgh team that might score, no points. And then, I've heard some people with the take that maybe you want to pay down for Pickett at 5,100, and that's not the thing that I want to do. But it's something to talk about. What do you think of this game? What are you doing here? I mean, again, we're waiting for McKenzie a little bit, but what's your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, it's a frustrating game. I'm getting some Devin Singletary, actually, a guy you didn't mention, the running back, a little bit. I think he's
Okay.
the way to leverage off of the Josh Allen stacks. I don't mind Gabe Davis and Diggs paired with Allen. Yeah, Shakir could be a good play at 3.2K, but like I don't even like anybody on the pit side. I'm not even playing any Najee today. They got Claypool, Pickens, and Johnson. Johnson gets a lot of spread. Maybe all three of those guys do something or nothing. I like the Bills defense today and a lot of Singletary. So I have no Pickett either. I know a lot of people are talking about him. I think there's a lot of other viable cheap quarterbacks today that I'm all in on.
And would you and again in GPP type builds, would you be willing to play, say, two Buffaloes with no Pitts, or are you more of a purist and you want kind of a run back?
Yeah, so one of my biggest that 250 FanDuel, what is it called? The NFL Blitz on FanDuel, the $250. I have Josh Allen, Diggs, and Gabe Davis stack with no Pitt run back in that on FanDuel. But yeah, that's
Yeah,
like my only Josh.
I'm getting into those types of builds too, and it's kind of line up soon. It's kind of challenging my you know what I mean, my purism, you know what I mean, about really wanting a run back, but that's
Yeah.
one of the things that when you use SaberSim, it kind of like checks yourself a little bit, because if SaberSim is going to come up with those types of builds, two with no run back, it's probably because they're not a bad idea. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
just because I feel as though it should be a run back doesn't necessarily make it so. So I'm kind of with you on that. And with the Pitt run back, if you're going to go there, um, Pickens, Deontay Johnson, I guess those would be the guys. Uh, so again, I always forget to do this, so I'm checking off this injury stuff. So back to the Chargers, I'm waiting for Palmer. For Buffalo, waiting for McKenzie. Right. Houston, Jacksonville for me is a pretty it's a pretty good game as far as how fast I think it could get. And the one bit of news that I'm waiting on. I'm pretty sure that Zay Jones is going to play, but the fact that I'm sure doesn't mean anything. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have the Lawrence with Kirk and Zay Jones thing, not to mention Marvin Jones, not to mention OJ. Well, we'll get to OJ Howard in a second. Not to mention maybe even Evan Ingram. There's some Jacksonville guys that make for a pretty sweet stack. And on the run backs for Houston, the chalkier of those run backs is obviously going to be Brandon Cooks. But as I just kind of like let on, I mean, like OJ Howard at 2,600 certainly could be considered a decent run back too. And then also on the other side of this game, you have the running back for Houston who's projecting pretty decently, the Dameon Pierce. So this game I think is going to be the worst kept secret in the world. You know what I mean? This is going to be that game that everybody's claiming is sneaky, but ends up being popular. I think that's my take on it. But I kind of like it a little bit. What are you doing here? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I've been kind of on the Brandon Cooks and Dameon Pierce all year, really. So yeah, Jacksonville I've also been on. I had Trevor Lawrence stacks probably every week with a Christian Kirk or Zay Jones type of play. So yeah, I definitely have one. I already have one of those stacks in, so I definitely don't mind this game, and I'm filling in around a lot of Cooks and Pierce, with some Christian Kirk too. So
Minnesota, Chicago, I don't really see too much injury news anymore because I'm actually seeing that Montgomery is going to play, which is interesting. I mean, whenever if he weren't playing, you would have to consider Herbert again, but he's playing. So for me, I don't think he's going to end up in play for me, but it's just something to note. And then the Minnesota receivers, I haven't heard a lot of talk about the Minnesota receivers this week, probably because, I mean, Jefferson's really expensive, right? Like Jefferson's 8,900, and people are like, well, if you're going to do that, you may as well just play Kupp or something like that. But these guys still garner like all the targets, right? Jefferson and Thielen and Irv Smith. I mean, a tight end, he's 3,200. And listen, tight end is going to be pretty concentrated around Tyler Higbee, for openers. So I think that if you want to play tight ends, you could do worse. I think that Chicago still has this kind of reputation for being kind of a decent defense, and I'm just not convinced of that. So I do think Minnesota can get there, and also, I mean, I kind of glossed over, but I mean, but Dalvin Cook at 7,300 looks remarkably affordable, you know. So what are you getting to these Minnesota guys in your builds kind of down the stretch here, or not so much, or anything else from this game?
Yeah, I definitely don't mind the Minnesota side. I think it's a good game. I do have Cook in that main Diggs stack that I got with Josh Allen. I don't mind him on FanDuel at 73. Yeah, he's cheap on FanDuel. Delvin Cook's pretty good price. So yeah, I'm getting a little bit of it. I mean, I'm not going too heavy today. I don't have too much MME build. So like, yeah, I definitely think Justin Jefferson's. I don't think Chicago Bears defense is that great. So like, I think you should play some of the Minnesota game side.
Detroit, New England. There's still pending news on this Detroit stuff. You know, they're saying that Armand St. Brown is actually a true game time decision now. I don't know exactly what that means. If it's going to be like literally at 12:45 or at least they'll give us a break and let us know at 11:30. Maybe he goes through some warmups. I'm seeing Josh Reynolds. He's expected to play. But you know, New England certainly has, decent, I guess a decent defense. I'm actually not even sure. You know, they played a nice game last week. But I think if St. Brown remains out, then first of all, I think he's in. I think I'd be kind of think it's foolish to dismiss him. I mean, he's a total freaking stud, and the only reason that he wouldn't be played is because of the New England defense. But I mean, if they let St. Brown play and go off low owned, I think that's a mistake by the field, if you want to know the truth. So that's the one thing. And if he's out, I have to believe that all these guys from Detroit remain in play. You know, like you don't want to do it because, like, again, for some reason, I have this feeling that New England is just kind of this team that nobody wants to go against because of like Belichick, and he put up a pretty good defensive game against Green Bay last week, to say the least. But there was another game where they almost broke the slate. Like them in Baltimore put up like 1,000,000 points or something like that. You know, I'm not so sure that New England's defense is that great, if you want to know the truth. And the other thing I want to ask you about this game is on the New England side. I've heard so many people with very strong takes on either of these running backs. I mean, I've had people really liking Stevenson. I've had people really liking Harris. I don't quite get it. You know what I mean? Like, I think you're just kind of in a timeshare. And if you're not, you don't know which way it's going to go. And yeah, in GPPs, you can say, well, that's what I want. I'll gamble on one guy getting most of the work. But I mean, for me, if you're going to do that, just play freaking Jeff Wilson with like 100% of the freaking snaps. You know what I mean? Like, so that's where I'm at on this game. It seems like a game that's kind of ugly, but I don't know, man. Detroit, every game Detroit plays breaks the slate. You know what I mean? So what do you think about this?
Yeah, I have no Stevenson for what it's worth. I don't like the New England backfield at all. Also, Jacoby Myers is coming back today. He gets a lot of the dump off passes. I know he hasn't played with Zappy yet and all this, but you know, Jacoby Myers been a decently reception target heavy guy. But yeah, the backfield's kind of mixed. I don't really like it. You know, Lions do have a bad defense, but they are scoring points on offense. Amon St. Brown also said he's likely to play, it looks like, on a recent one of the beat writers put in there.
Okay.
So I think he's trending toward playing, is what they're saying. So like that could be an option for Amon. But yeah, man, I don't like this New England, you know, and their defense hasn't been that great. So maybe the Lions can score some points. It is kind of a game that could go either way. I think low scoring or a high scoring affair today. So it's kind of scary fade for me, I think, on the Stevenson. But I like Jeff Wilson a lot today, for what it's worth.
Seattle, New Orleans. Okay, so I am presume. Okay, it says Kamara is expected to play. That's good news. But the one guy on the New Orleans side who remains questionable, I would like some information on Jarvis Landry for the Saints. You have Olave at 5,700, who's already going to probably look like a decent play. But if Landry is out, I don't know how much they've spoken about this guy, but I think guys like Marquez Callaway come right up into the mix. He's not really projecting much for me right now, but I don't don't quite see why he wouldn't come into the mix. You know what I mean? He's always that guy that when guys are out, he just gets routes, he gets gets some deep shots or whatever it is. So I'm going to take a look at him if in fact Landry's out. If Landry's in, I don't know if I'm going to do that, but I think in either case, it looks like what's his name, Kamara looks like a good play. On the Seattle side, I don't know if I want to be messing with the Saints defense. But as people have pointed out, maybe I'm hallucinating. Maybe the Saints defense really isn't that good anymore. It could be, but I'm also not completely convinced that Geno Smith is any good, in spite of how he's done recently. But I look, Lockett's going to show up to be a decent play. Metcalf, I think, is always a decent GPP play. What do you do in this game? If anything?
You're not gonna like my game intakes on this one or takes on this one. I'm all in on this game. I think both sides of it. I like Dalton's side with Chris Olave, Jarvis Landry, Alvin Kamara. I like all three of those guys. And DK and Lockett to get all the work for Seattle. I really like that option. I think Geno can do some work on this game. I think he's been looking pretty good, and like defenses this year are kind of crazy. Like a lot of them were thought to be good, but they're not looking like they are good. So like, I think this game might be a good learning experience. Like we're gonna really see if the Saints are got a decent defense, or we're gonna see Geno's actually a decent quarterback stack this year. So I like that. And there's a tight end in play. I didn't hear you say anything about tight end in this game. It's one of your guys.
What on Juwan Johnson?
Juwan Johnson, one of your flyer tight ends to go with your OJ Howard call.
Well, I have to like make a lot of money today so that I can plow in on Josh Oliver in the showdown slate tonight. So
you're going to the showdown tight ends season.
So we liked, which one do we like? We like Juwan Johnson. This is not a Troutman week, right? So you like Juwan Johnson?
Yeah, I don't mind throwing some Juwan Johnson. I have like a Crystal, Olave and then Johnson with Dalton stack with Lockett or Metcalf run back.
Well, what I would do if I were you, I mean, if you were playing this game, is really pay attention. If like Landry is ruled out, to what they say and how Marcus Callaway and guys like that might step up there. Because if you're gonna exposure this game like multiple ways, you want to get some other combinations. So I would, if in fact Landry is out, I would dip into those other guys, and I definitely think the Juwan Johnson play. Again, if you like this game, it certainly makes a lot of sense. And it goes back to my tight end discussion, right? Higbee's going to end up being really, really chalky. So anybody you play a tight end that gets that has a good game, you're going to be very happy about it. So if you like this game, listen, it's in the dome. The weather conditions are good. And as I kind of led on, the Saints defense is probably overrated. It's more by reputation than pretty much anything else. And the point you made, which is, people sometimes get too fancy and forget about this, but the great thing about Seattle is you know where those targets are going. You just know. I mean, you don't know which one is going to get more of them, but they're going to be between those two guys. I mean, like, I'm not too worried about Will Disley burying me. You know what I mean? If I'm playing Seattle or whoever a third wide receiver goes. So that's really good. Okay, good takes there. Miami Jets. I am presuming that both these guys are going to be in, like for now, Hill and Waddle for Miami, but just because they're questionable, you know what I mean? I'm still looking at it. You never know who they announce, whatever. And I think that this game is very reasonable to go after. Once again, I think I know where these targets are going from Teddy Bridgewater, that being Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. They both have a lot of speed. They both have a lot of upside. They both have a lot of ceiling. And the Jets side of it, what's his name? The running back, Breece Hall, is showing up as a decent 5,400 play. And I'm not getting, at least right now, to like receivers for the Jets, but I do think that if you want to play Miami and are kind of hunting for run backs, I do think that, listen, these rookies and these younger guys always have like kind of upside. So I think Wilson is very legitimate if you want to kind of stack this game a little bit. So listen, watch for the news. I'm not, again, just because you think they're going to play, let's make sure they are before you finalize your lineups. And I didn't get to either of these running backs for Miami, which is kind of interesting because last week, like both these guys were kind of talked about, and they're both still cheap, and they're against the Jets, who, listen, they were able to beat Pittsburgh, congratulations, whatever it is. I think that the jury's still out on whether the Jets are any good or not. So I don't know. I mean, did you get to any of this Miami stuff?
I do have a Teddy Bridgewater stack with I think Hill and Waddle are both probable. They're good to go. It looks like.
Okay.
I don't mind. I'm getting a little bit of Hall in that game as well. He looks like the clear guy lately, and he's getting a little bit of high ownership though. I like him in game stacks more, maybe not as much one offs. So if that game goes off, I think I kind of like that a little bit.
So Atlanta, Tampa. I mean, I have to say that I guess I was wrong about this. I was under the belief that when Cordell Patterson was ruled out, that the Tyler Algier would be like the most popular play of the week by a lot. Okay, but I didn't know. Yeah, I don't know that what Atlanta does with their stuff, and from what people were telling me that they had Huntley with 10 rushing 10 rushes last week, and I hear that the Avery Williams might be eligible to get some targets or something like that. I really don't know. It just seems weird that you take like the 6,300 guy who's getting all the work out, and you can't find any of these guys at 5K to play. Below 5K to play. So I'm still not convinced that one of these guys is not a good play, but I'll get back to that in a minute. The real thing about this game, well, not the real thing, a lot of things about this game, but let's start with the Atlanta side and the fact that Kyle Pitts was ruled out. All right. So what that does is that in all these Brady stacks, it really drives a lot of lineups to Drake London. Okay. And I guess for good reason, but he's not the only guy that's going to be running routes, right? So if you are going to play Tampa and you want to play a run back, I mean, do you play guys like Zacchaeus, right, at wide receiver? God knows who the freaking backup tight end who's going to get the rush. I really don't. These are like Sheets plays. I mean, it's like M. Pruitt going to be in there. I mean, I know Ferkser. I've heard of him at least. I don't know if he's going to be the guy. I really have no idea. But I do think that if you play the Tampas, it's just probably wise to play an Atlanta run back. And look, you're playing single entry or 3 max or whatever. It's just I would just play Drake London and just kind of be done with it if you're going to do any kind of stack with a run back there. But if you're playing the Millie Maker, I think it's very reasonable to try the Zacchaeus and other stuff like that. Now, on the Tampa side, to address what somebody said up here in the chat, yeah, I don't find it unreasonable at all to think that Cade Otton gets 2 touchdowns. People say, oh, watch Cade Otton get 2 touchdowns. Listen, Tom Brady was locked in to Cameron Brate in this last game. Okay. He doesn't like to sit there and wait for guys to get old. He really doesn't. He wants to get rid of that freaking thing. He's in his 40s. Now he's divorced. He's got to take care of himself a little bit. You know what I mean? I don't think he's going to wait for these long guys to get open if he could just find some dude. You know what I mean? Like, especially in a game against Atlanta, which they're supposed to deal with that. So if this guy, Cade Otton, like, I would not be the slightest bit surprised if he goes off in this game. I would not. With Braid out, I think that this is very, very reasonable, by the way. Now, the legitimate play, not the legitimate plays, but the other plays, you have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, both of whom are going to look, both of them are very, very legit. For those of you that play Julio Jones, good luck to you. I mean, he got like no snaps in his last game for no reason.
He's out today.
Julio's
out. Russell Gage will play, it looks like.
Okay.
Another news that just came out, Logan Thomas is out for Washington. I know we haven't got to that game yet, but
we'll get to that. And then the other obvious play that's it's interesting is Leonard Fournette, because Sheets's R. White's performance on the showdown slate may have put a little fear of God into Fournette chalk. I don't know. R. White was getting some series and getting some love there. Listen, Fournette, very few running backs can get like 100% of the work. It's very, very difficult. So nonetheless, I mean, from a purist perspective, I mean, he's the lead back. He does everything, and they're a big favorite. So he's going to project to be probably between him and I would say between him, Kamara, and Jeff Wilson. I think you're talking about the 3 quote unquote best plays, I guess. So he's going to be owned, but listen, I guess for good reason. So this game is obviously very logical. It's a similar but a little different situation in the Buffalo game, because at least I know what I would run back with if I was going to stack this game. I run it back with Drake London, And then if I was in the mood, I would take shots at the Zacchaeuses and the other guys. What are you doing in this game? Where are you? What are your thoughts?
I don't mind the Tom Brady stack. It looks really chalky. Godwin, Evans are the clear favorites. I think I'll dabble in a little bit of it. But I'm really pretty light on the chalk today for what it's worth.
Yeah, well, you're
So
taking a nice stand on that Geno game. So that's and that I don't think that's I think that could be owned, but I don't think it could be. I don't think it's going to be popular. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I think the Olave side is going to be pretty popular, but if you can get to other constructions, I think that you can do something there. Okay, Washington, Tennessee. So you just mentioned again, just checkpoint that Logan Thomas is out for Washington. Um, which does matter, because you do have some receivers for Washington that are pretty good, as far as you know what I mean. Like we know where it's going. So Terry McLaurin probably gets a little bit of a bump. Curtis Samuel probably gets a little bit of a bump. We have Jahan Dotson is out. So now between Jahan Dotson out and the tight end being out, Logan Thomas, who's a legit receiver, I think it'd be foolish to discount, the increased target share that's going to come to McLaurin and Samuel. Doesn't seem like the type of game that you want to stack or anything like that. But listen, as I just mentioned, I mean, this is where it's going. It's going to McLaurin and Samuel, and as we've seen, Wentz is not afraid to sling this freaking thing around. You know what I mean? So I mean, he won someone $1 million a few weeks ago. You know what I mean? And it came close a couple of another game. So I actually don't mind this. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of a low owned type deal here. On the Tennessee side, I don't really like much of the receiving. Like Robert Woods, 5,200 feels cheap, um, but I don't not so sure about that. But what's to me, I mean, something you really have to consider is once again is Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, not only is he running the ball, but they're throwing him screen passes. You know what I mean? They're getting him touches in the passing game, and I don't know. I mean, like these running backs are obviously really good plays, like Fournette and Wilson and all this stuff, but I don't think those guys have nearly the ceiling that someone like Henry has. Well, obviously, because Henry's $3,000 more, right? Whatever. But every game this season, I mean, I played him, and at halftime, it looked like he was going to score 50. You know what I mean? He ended up kind of like tapering off in the second half, but I think he's legit ceiling potential kind of every week. So I think Henry's totally in play, and I do think both those receivers are in play for Washington.
Yeah, I like Henry. I like Henry today, and then Samuel and Terry are going to get a lot more bump, I think. I people have been talking a little bit about the Wentz stack a little bit today too,
Oh,
and
they have okay, that makes
they
sense.
like that they like that game. Stack those guys up and then run it back with Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's been getting a ton of work in the passing game, so I'm trying to pay up a little bit at running back today too, and Henry's one of those guys, and I'm getting a little bit too. So
Speaking of paying up at running back, so San Francisco, Carolina. We'll start with Carolina for a second. So McCaffrey's 8,500. I just don't feel that I could live myself like playing so much of a high price guy against San Francisco like ever. You know what I mean? San Francisco is really really tough. Um, but I don't know. I mean, for the same reasons that I think Derrick Henry has a ceiling. I mean, like I imagine McCaffrey has a ceiling, but it's a tough team to get a ceiling performance against, man. I mean, they're a tough business, San Francisco. Um, Jeff Wilson on the San Francisco side. Again, we're going to reiterate this. If you're going to think of playing guys like New England, who you don't even know what the snap count is going to be, whatever, or the work is going to be. I mean, Jeff Wilson literally, I think I want to say 100% of the snaps, but pretty damn close, and he was able to handle the work really easily. I think this is a very difficult. I think it is a kind of a difficult fade if you want to know the truth. He doesn't really he's like not like the big PPR type of guy, whatever, but he's going to get the ball down in the goal line. The only thing that you worry about with him really is that is that Deebo Samuel gets the touchdowns from rushing the ball. But at 5,500, I mean, I don't know. If I played cash, which I don't, this would literally I would play him probably before Fournette. I don't know. I would probably end up playing both if you want to know the truth. But I think Wilson's very very safe. I think overall the game is probably going to be kind of boring. but I think Wilson's probably the play out of this game.
Yeah, I like Jeff Wilson a lot. I mean, he's a tough chalk fade today. I do get a little CMC in the game too. I think he'll have a big game soon. I think maybe he can get a bunch of dump offs. DJ Moore also gets a lot of the target share in that game too. If you want to play him, he's projecting pretty decent, but at low ownership. But I'm not on this game as heavy, but I got some pieces in there. I think. I got a birthday narrative for you. Actually, she's in
Who
this
do we
game.
got?
Kittle's birthday's today, so
Okay.
Kittle at 5,200 on DK might be a play you want to sneak in there. Maybe get some looks. Coming back, he hasn't looked that good yet, but maybe it's his week.
Philadelphia, Arizona. I mean, you feel this should be a game that you want to play, right? But I wanted to. I mean, and I might, but I want to talk through Arizona for just a minute. All right. So, see, Arizona has this reputation, I guess, for always playing like really high scoring games and playing really fast. But I will say this: in the last 2 weeks, I mean, really hasn't performed. You know what I mean? Like you have in their last game, they played a really nice defensive game. You want to know the truth? I mean, they played really nicely and they got a nice W on the road, which is very rare for in the NFL. And as a matter of fact, they're 2-0 on the road this year. They won at Carolina and they won in Vegas. That Vegas game was just amazing. Okay, how they came back from that was ridiculous. They were down 16 and they 2 touchdowns, 2-point conversions. Kyler Murray was just impossible. But so I do want to play this, and I think the problem is it's kind of twofold. Like the Buffalo was kind of tough to get a run back. I think with Philly, I don't exactly know what I would do on the Philly side. Like, listen, I obviously play Jalen Hurts, but then what do? Do you play AJ Brown? Do you play Devontae Smith? Do you play them both? Do you play Goddard? Is Sanders a good play? I think the Arizona side of it is actually kind of easy. We have to obviously see if Rondale Moore is going to play, right? So I'm looking at he's expected to play, so I'm going to presume that's the case. I'm going to operate on the assumption he's playing, and that seems like the very logical run back at 4,100. Okay, Marquise Brown at 7,200. I mean, for GPPs, if you want to get a good game stack going, whatever it is, I don't think people are going to play him. So that's fine, and you could go back to Greg Dortch if you want. I mean, that's fine too if you really want to take a shot to game stack this thing or whatever. So I guess all that is my way of saying that I think this game is fine. I don't. Again, I'm going to make my builds after we get off because I really want to make sure this injury stuff doesn't project these Shakiras and these Marcus Callaways up to where I got to deal with it. You know what I mean? But right now, I guess instinctively, I probably would get some of this Philadelphia Arizona game. What do you think of this game?
Yeah, I think Goddard and AJ Brown are like the key guys for Hurts. I think just play those guys. I really like them. Rondale Moore, I think is good to go from what I've seen. Probable, everything's saying good, and he's not a bad play at 4,100. He gets a lot of like quick passes and stuff. He could be elite, But and the Ertz is projecting pretty decent for a tight end, and a Brown's probably a really good GPP play because he's a little bit more expensive. We do have some big news that just came in. Your boy Isaiah McKenzie is out, so
Okay.
that Shakir play might be a little bit bigger.
Yep.
Of a go now, so
and it will be, and I'll give everybody kind of a heads up. I always struggle with this, like when should I update all my stuff? I want to wait as long as possible to account for news, but as early as possible to give people a chance to use the information, right? So what I think I'm going to do is at about when we get off of this, which will be sooner than later, right? But definitely by 12. I will update everything, and hopefully by then, like some of the models will update Shakir and maybe see what happens with Jarvis Landry. Will update that. I think it's pretty safe to say that by 12, everything should be kind of locked in from a projection perspective, and then you guys can judge how to build based on that or whatever. But I will say that if Shakir is ends up really chalky, probably not the greatest play in the world, but maybe the news is coming in. It's not even coming in that late. I think he's going to be efficient. I think people are going to react in an efficient way. I don't think he's going to be too popular. I don't think he's going to be too low owned. I think it's going to be something that you'll want to play in your Buffalo stacks. Dallas Rams. So a lot of what we've been talking about as far as saving money is because people want to play Cooper Kupp, and I don't blame them in a way. Like Cooper Kupp, no matter how many times you try to fade him, no matter how many times it looks like he's been faded, and it's at halftime, he's got 6 fantasy points. By the end of the day, he's got 30. He just does. And listen, what's the McVay is smart. I mean, he designs plays for him. He gets him the ball. The guy never drops it. He breaks tackles. I mean, the guy's a freaking animal. You know what I mean? Like, he's awesome. I will say this, and I'm going to be total recency bias nut here. Okay. I watched Dallas last week against the Giants. Now, to compare the Giants receivers and the Giants skill positions to the Rams position is really stupid. Okay. But I'm going to say it anyway. The Dallas defense is freaking tough. Okay. They get a lot of pressure. They're really, really good. And it just seems to me that you're not supposed to play $9,600 receivers against that. Also, from the Tyler Higbee discussion, he's going to project to be, a really, really good play. But I will also say, likewise, I don't think you're supposed to play very chalky receivers against that type of defense. If I'm right about the defense, obviously. Maybe it's because they're playing the Giants, they look really good. Now, I will say this. If I had to pick between Higbee and Kupp, the interesting thing is, based on the narrative I just described, I think Higbee's actually the more logical play, because like Higbee, at least, if what's his name is under a lot of pressure, he's going to be easier probably to find somebody like Higbee than Kupp's routes or whatever it is. So just in full disclosure, when I run all my builds, I'm getting just as the analytic people like to say, shit ton of Cooper Kupp, right? Because I'm able to do it, with all this other stuff. And God forbid, the Shakira guy, I mean, he just makes it even more possible that you can go play Cooper Kupp, whatever it is. I'm going to probably, after whatever builds I make are in, just pair him back because of what I just said. And that's what I'm doing there. On the Dallas side, I just wanted to make sure I'm getting this right. Yeah, Dalton Schultz is in. All these guys look like they're in for Dallas. That would be CeeDee Lamb. It does say, he will play. Here's one stat which I heard early this week, which is kind of interesting. It's kind of amazing when you think about it. I think the Rams are rated either last or dead last against wide receiver ones this year, their defense, which is kind of amazing to me. But that's what I had heard. So if you want to take a shot at some of this Dallas stuff, I wouldn't steer you wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know who's going to do this, but CeeDee Lamb coming off the Q tag at 7K against the Rams. I mean, who wants to do that? I don't know, especially with Cooper Rush throwing in the ball. Gallup's second game back at 5K. I don't know. Is that the worst play in the world? I mean, this is Millie Maker's crap, or late game crap. But I'm not going to get to, I don't believe, the Ezekiel Elliott. But that's my thoughts on this game. Where are you on Kupp? Where are you with Higbee? Where are you with Dallas? Where are you with this game?
Yeah, Higbee's pretty chalky. I got him sprinkled in a little bit. I might be a little bit lower on Kupp today. I did throw a couple of Allen Robinson in there. I'm waiting for him to do something. Dalton Schultz, I think I got a little bit of more exposure to him for Dallas side of things, and the receivers for Dallas and running backs, I'm not getting a lot to today either. So
okay,
kind of low on this game, I think. Besides sprinkling in some of those guys I just mentioned.
Now, with respect to defenses, I'm going to just run my builds, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably just limit my exposure to 15% of any defense, just because I just feel as though any defense shouldn't be played more than 20%. Unless playing one lineup, obviously you have to play somebody 100%. Whatever it is. You have to pick somebody. But we'll go over who we like. But I think if you're multi-entering, I don't think you need to take a really big stand in defense. But what was interesting, again, I'm curious to get your takes on the defense, because the first looks at these defenses I saw earlier in this week with projections, like the top, I guess, point per dollar plays, the top plays all were teams that you just don't want to play.
Hey,
it's
can I
really
pause you we got big news. Can I pause you for a second?
Yeah, go for it.
Jarvis Landry is out.
He is? Okay, here we go. So this is why we prepare, right? So Jarvis Landry is out. So you have to watch and I'm going to look at all the projection models. I'm going to see how they update and see whatever. I'm expecting perhaps listen to me hedging. I'm expecting Marcus Callaway to step up. That's what I'm expecting. Now I could be wrong about that, but somebody has to get a bump. You know what I mean? In these models, somebody has to. Obviously, Olave now is just going to, he's going to. Now, I was going to say he's going to pop even more, but does Olave take any of those Jarvis Landry 7-yard targets? Probably not, right? So I'll tell you who gets a bump. Like Alvin Kamara gets a bump for openers. And I think I think the Juwan Johnson is going to get a bump. And I do think there's going to be another guy. I'm guessing it's Marcus Callaway, but I mean Quan Smith. I don't know what work he's been getting or whatever it is. But I think you'd have to make room for that.
Yeah, it's for sure.
We'll see. We'll see what it is. So in the defense, what I was going to say is that most of the good point per dollar plays this week were teams you just didn't want to play. It's like so weird. It's like it was either like the best you could do was like Dallas against the Rams. You know what I mean? Like because they were really cheap. But then you go a little scared, like defenses against the Rams. You know what I mean? So who do you like as far as defenses go today?
Oh, I'm really mixed today on defenses.
Oh, good. I feel better.
It's kind of all over. I'm just kind of going what's fit. I know the Cowboys are looking to be chalky. 2,500. I like the Seahawks New Orleans game as well, but I don't mind even playing some Seahawks defense at 2,500. Even got to some New England and Lions defense. That game could be a shootout or could be low scoring. I don't mind. Maybe both running backs just kind of beat out the clock in that game this week. So I'm kind of sprinkling the same stacks I'm stacking. I'm also playing their defenses. The Bills are probably the best if you can get up to them at 4,100 against Pitt, but people are playing Pitt too. So I don't mind some Houston too. They're at 2,400 against Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence does look good, but he's also throwing it in the coverage a little bit. So I'm just kind of mixed with all these defenses this week.
That's fair enough. I mean, I'll just add a couple little nuggets. First of all, just so you guys know, don't forget that Jalen Hurts threw a pick six last week to basically start off the game. You have Arizona at 2,100, and whenever you have a game that rates to be fast with a lot of plays, that means that shit can happen. So I'll just kind of throw that out there. And like you said, I'm pretty spread out as well. I mean, that's my whole point. It's like if my Bills just get me like 25% down or something, dude, there's just no way I'm doing that. I'm going to pare that back a little bit. There was one team that you mentioned as we were kind of going through the course of the thing that you mentioned, and yeah, even though they're expensive, I mean the Bills are probably a good play. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, I'm not going to take any really big stands kind of on defense. Okay, so BBF is we'll take a couple questions here before we get out of here. He's saying Lions offense is due for some regression, right? Why not this week? I don't know if that's fair to say that they're due for regression. I mean, they play fast. People didn't think they did, I suppose. They're due for some regression, meaning that I don't think they're gonna get 42 points this week against New England. But if you still have St. Brown out, okay, then you still have cheap receivers, and those still become good plays. And remember, it's been like a year or two, so we talked about this defense doesn't matter narrative, whatever it is. I think there's a certain degree of wisdom in that. I think that New England they're just a team. They're not the 86 Bears, and it's whatever. I mean, look, I'll put it to you another way. New England had this incredible game. Really, they played against Green Bay last week. I mean, you really think that like they're going to be totally up for this game against Detroit? You know what I mean? I don't know. I think New England comes out kind of flat in this game, and it's not. And I don't know. And the fact that St. Brown has been questionable all week, it kind of screws with Belichick a little bit, because Belichick likes to like figure out what the other team's going to do and put this whole scheme together against it. So, like, if he knew St. Brown was going to be playing, he'd be putting this whole game plan together to blanket St. Brown and do whatever. But he doesn't even know, So it kind of messed with him kind of a little bit. Yeah, and that's true. BBF, they did play all games indoors, but it's not like the weather in New England's terrible, and um, yeah, they're not. I don't project them to be as great, be great plays. But I'll say this, and this is not particularly earth shattering. They're certainly not going to be as owned as they were last week. um, that's for sure. So I wouldn't mind. I honestly wouldn't mind playing Detroit. What else we have here? No real particular questions up here. Palmer is active. Okay, that's good news. Good news in that we have it, right? So what was I waiting on? So I was waiting on Palmer. He's active. We were waiting on
Landry.
Buffalo. We got McKenzie out, right? So we're going to deal with the Shakira thing. Do we have confirmation about Zay Jones? No.
No, that's one we don't.
But he's expected to be active, it says. All right,
Yeah.
I'll live with that for now. I'll build. I don't have to wait for that to build. Minnesota, Chicago, we're good. Detroit, let me see the St. Brown news. He is expected to play. Okay, fine. I'm actually, just so you guys, I'm gonna play some of that. I'm gonna play some of St. Brown. But I'm not gonna play the obviously the fringe guys for Detroit. But I will play some St. Brown just for funsies. New England, no injury news. We talked about Jarvis Landry. He is out, right? So he is out. So bump to other receivers, which I'll try to deal with. Miami, I am presuming both these guys are in, Hill and Waddle.
Yep,
Tampa,
they show both in.
They bar both in. Tampa and Atlanta, nothing. Tennessee, Washington, nothing. San Fran, Carolina, nothing. Philly, Arizona, nothing. Dallas, Rams, nothing. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Zay Jones is playing from BBF. Someone says I think it's a James Robinson game. I think it's okay. I think that I think that the thing about this is that they are an 8-point favorite or whatever it is, and I think that listen, they have the rookie for a reason. They're not gonna just let James Robinson take all the work. It's just not gonna happen. I don't think. And I just prefer Jeff Wilson to James Robinson. I guess the best way I could describe it. Texas run defense suck. That's true. You know what? Their pass defense sucks too. It's like they're. But I will say Texas is somewhat pesky. Any other takes you want to lay on us before we get out of here, Mr. Rhodey?
Oh man, today's a tough slate. Just don't get too crazy, I think. Just use your projections good, sheets of projections guy. Wait for these updates and just kind of build with kind of what we gave you guys based on per game, and then just build good lineups, with the projections today.
Yeah. All right. Just so you guys know, the showdown slate projections are already up for the late game tonight. Those will be updated a little bit later, and that'll do it. Thanks, Rhodey, and we got through this nice and easily, and hopefully gave everybody some good takes. And good luck.